Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjano Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjano Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjano Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjano Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Shuddha Shimad His Divine Grace Bhai Jagannath Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samveda Bhakti Mani Ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, C.C. Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Who gave class yesterday? No, I'm just wondering whose prasadam getting here. It's a half cup.
Oh, I don't think I drank it.
So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 8, verse 46. Narada Muni is continuing his instructions. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiyat Srila Prabhupada. So verse 46. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam Darunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Anyone like to chant? Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Anyone else? Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtikshanadharam Pranatasrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karunarnavam. Anyone else? Tarunam, youthful. Ramaniya, attractive. Angam, all parts of the body. Aruna Oshta, lips pinkish like the rising sun. Ikshna Adaram, eyes of the same nature. Pranata, one who is surrendered. Ashrayanam, shelter of the surrendered. Nrimnam, transcendently pleasing in all respects. Sharanyam, the person unto whom it is just worthy to surrender. Karuna, merciful like Arnavam, the ocean. You're already bored, huh? He's yawning already. I mean, he's gotten to the translation. Okay. Okay. Ecstatic symptoms. Narada Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Please repeat. Narada Muni continued. The Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish, like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Everyone has to surrender to someone superior. That is always the nature of our living condition. At the present moment, we are trying to surrender to someone, either to society or to our nation, family, state, or government. The surrendering process already exists, but it is never perfect because the person or institution unto whom we surrender is imperfect, and our surrender, having so many ulterior motives, is also imperfect. As such, in the material world, no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, nor does anyone fully surrender to anyone else unless obliged to do so. But here the surrendering process is voluntary, and the Lord is worthy to accept the surrender. This surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord. The description given by Narada Muni is not imaginary. The form of the Lord is understood by the Parampara system. Mayavadi philosophers say that we have to imagine the form of the Lord, but here Narada Muni does not say that. Rather, he gives the description of the Lord from authoritative sources. He is himself an authority, and he is able to go to Vaikuntha and see the Lord personally. Therefore, his description of the bodily features of the Lord is not imagination. Sometimes we give instructions to our students about the bodily features of the Lord, and they paint him. Their paintings are not imaginary. The description is given through succession, just like that given by Narada Muni, who sees the Lord and describes his bodily features. Therefore, such descriptions should be accepted, and if they are painted, that is not imaginative painting. Om Agyan Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksulun Minitam Dinataismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So translation again. Narada Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. So, when is that? Advaita Machuta Manari Nantu Rupam Ajam Purana Navayovanam Cha. So on one hand, Krishna is the oldest person, but Navayovanam Cha. But he appears always like a fresh youth. That's our understanding. He's always youthful. Sometimes, quite often actually, youthfulness is equated with inexperience. Right? Someone's young, they're young and foolish, right? You hear that expression? All the time, young and foolish. That's why people get married while they're young. See, people get older, they're very apprehensive about getting married, you know, right? Like that. Sometimes they maybe just have really, got to be a little bit young and foolish to get married sometimes. That's the brahmacharis, right? I'm letting you know that. Just be careful, you're all young. You may become foolish. So, but God's the oldest. He's the source, he's the beginning of everything. That's why the mundane concept is there beautifully painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, right? Well, God is the oldest, so he's depicted by Michelangelo as an old man, right? And he's the beard and all that. He looks kind of good build, though. He looks like, not my day, it was Atlas. Johnny Atlas, was that his name? Atlas. No, the weightlifter, Atlas, yeah. Johnny Appleseed. Krishna's throwing apple seeds all over the place. Bijaham sarvabhutanam. Krishna's the original Johnny Appleseed. He's planting not just apple seeds, but all seeds. But he's a very old man. He's depicted in that way. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but Michelangelo was thinking like this. And there was, I forget, the Pope. He presented his drawings. Prabhupada talks about the artist in the second part of the purport here. So Michelangelo presented his sketches first, and the Pope okayed it. Said, okay, that's what I want. That's what I want. So the Pope, whose words are infallible, right? I guess he knows what God looks like. He said, yes, that's it. So he went and he painted that picture there. And he's surrounded by all these naked little boys. It's kind of interesting. But that's God, right then. In our concept, everyone in the spiritual world has clothes on. But anyways, I painted like that. So, but he's a transcendental person. So, Purnanam, he's the oldest, but Navayovanam cha, but he's actually the youngest. He always appears like a youthful person. No one wants to grow old. Prabhupada is saying here about we're all surrendering. This morning, Maharaj made the point about how Vrindavan Chandra was dressed one day with all these watches on him. Right? Time I am. Right? What you said that Krishna greets everyone as time. Yeah. Krishna greets everyone as time. So we all have to, ultimately we have to surrender to time. Prabhupada mentions here in the purport, at the present moment we're trying to surrender to someone, either society, our nation, family, state, government. But one thing we can never escape is we have to surrender to the passing of time. Can anyone escape that? No, not for one iota, one single moment. We're all surrendering. So time is passing, but Krishna is the controller of time. We all want to be very, very youthful. I saw a part of a documentary recently about, it was actually South Korea. It wasn't Taiwan, it was South Korea. And how the cosmetic, what do you call it, plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery is just commonplace. And it's understood that you will get plastic surgery once or twice at least in your life as you grow up. The endeavor to look as beautiful as you possibly, or handsome as you possibly can, is so ingrained in society that it's just commonplace that you'll go in and get your nose a little bigger, your cheeks in, or this or that. Something to look better. Because there's, in an interview, they interviewed one woman. Why is that? He said, because the competition is so intense in that country to get ahead that they're thinking, if I have an edge of looking a little bit better than the other person, I'll move ahead in life. South Korea. So much money is there now, South Korea. So it's quite an interesting, because in our country it's there, just like was it the Reader? I remember the Reader, and also sometimes the examples given of like the phone book. They don't have it anymore, I guess. It's probably online in LA. Half the thing is plastic surgeons. I know that in the Reader. It used to always be like that. Half of it's...
And then the first part, the ads, because I'm sitting in the warranty center that week, and, sitting, not in the, and then near the end, are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling alone? Because like,
That's where you should go first, But they're thinking like that. If I have to hold on to my youthfulness, but it's a lost cause in the material world, because ultimately everything just falls apart. In the plastic surgery, they're always thinking this, another one, another one, another one. That's what they were saying. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. There's a famous story by Maxwell. What is that famous book? He was a plastic surgeon. He wrote a very famous book on positive thinking and so on. Maxwell Maltz. I forget the name of the book. Maybe some of you know Maxwell Maltz. And he tells a story in there about a patient he had, a woman who wasn't that unattractive, but she wanted some plastic surgery on her face to look like, I forget what the movie star was, like from the 30s or 40s or something like that. And he said, okay. Because she was feeling depressed about the way she looked. Okay, So they had the surgery. He said they had the surgery, and then after some time, when it's finally done and all healed and all that, he was taking the bandages off and showed her in the mirror, and she looked, practically speaking, like a twin of that movie star. And he said, well, how do you feel? And he said, I'm still depressed. So the point he was making in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics, that's it, by Maxwell Maltz, that it's not here, it's in here. You know, it's like you said, the rest of the ads are all about how depressed you are. So, because the point is, it's a useless endeavor to hold on to our youthfulness beyond just taking good care of our health and so on. But Krishna doesn't have to worry about that. He's ever youthful because he has a spiritual body. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. They're all thinking, I've got my nose just isn't the right size, and this, so there's some defect, therefore I have to adjust it. I have to adjust it and pay an exorbitant amount of money like that. So, now in the purport, I was talking about this point of surrender. And if you look in the dictionary, many times the very first thing they talk about when you look up the word surrender is as in a combat situation or war, one side surrenders to the other, right? They surrender. So when we preach, sometimes when you use the word surrender, people are thinking it's something negative, has negative connotations. But Prabhupada's making the point here. One thing he's making the point is that it already exists, but it's never perfect in the material world because two reasons on both sides of the equation. Who is there who's actually worthy to surrender ourselves to? And also, even in the process of surrendering ourselves, it's filled with so many ulterior motives. It's never pure. We're always holding back. You know what a prenup is?
Yeah.
You know, what's a prenup? In other words, I'm in love with you, but can you sign this? Because I'm not that much in love with you that if it doesn't work out, you're not going to take me to the cleaners.
Well, usually it's the guy who says because he doesn't want to get hacked.
Yeah, yeah. So they sign. Of course, if the woman's worth more than the man, then it works that way also. But a prenup, just in case it doesn't work out. Just in case. Because I love you very much, but you are not worthy of my complete surrender. Therefore, I can't completely surrender to you, therefore we have a prenup. So it's right here. So it's a business deal. It's a business deal. And so on both sides. Where was I going with this? So the point is that this word surrender, but if Prabhupada says, that's the material world. But he says here, but here the surrendering process is voluntary and the Lord is worthy to accept the surrender. The surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord. So the idea that the reason it's so unpalatable is we're thinking we're independent. And I'm going to give up my independence and give it to you. And who are you? You know, just like there are many situations, I don't know if it was the Geneva Convention or something before that, but there is the etiquette that if a soldier surrenders, you're not supposed to hurt them. Right? But there are many instances in many different wars that was not done. Like that was not done. They were taken and just wholesale slaughter. Not a good thing, but it goes on. So people are thinking, I don't know if I should surrender. No. So, and we've surrendered ourselves over and over and over and over in so many different situations and so many different lifetimes, and we've always been, what's the word? Cheated, burnt, right? So, I don't know. So when someone says, oh, you got to surrender to God. Nah, I don't know. Right there. The problem there is we don't know who we are, we don't know who God is, and we don't know what the surrendering process is. So we're kind of at a disadvantage, right? We don't even know what the situation is. So we have to ease people into this understanding. And one point you can make is that this idea of surrender, there are situations where we can see it's actually quite intelligent to give up one's so-called freedom, if it's a false type of freedom, right? If we're doing something, just like let's say a child is doing something very, very stupid, it may be harmful, And the parent says, you know, just stop that right now. And come on, let's, you know, and it's good for the child to do that, because the child's walking on the edge of a cliff or something, you know, or brandishing a knife or something, or running with scissors. Is that the one they say? Don't run with scissors. So it's not a good thing to do. You think, I'm independent, I can run with scissors if I want to run with scissors. No, you can't. It's actually for your welfare. So it's for our welfare, for our own good, to give up a mistaken idea of independence. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is giving that up, giving that, understanding it's a futile attempt, so-called independence in this material world. Now there's a verse about surrender. I don't know exactly where it's from. It's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the 6 limbs of surrender. You know, this word sharanagati, was it sharanyam in here? And of course, what's the most famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita about surrendering to God? That's, yes, well, you're very, very specific. Sarvam dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. Right, that sharanam, the sharanam, taking shelter, or this, what is that? Tadvidhi pranipatena paripashnena sevaya. So pranipat, there's different words in Sanskrit about surrendering oneself, giving oneself over. But Prabhupada says here, it's all voluntary. We're not forcing anyone. It comes automatically when you understand that Krishna is the shelter. He is the ultimate shelter. And why is that? Prabhupada says, this karuna arnavam, because he's an ocean of mercy. He's an ocean of kindness, an ocean of mercy. You know, sometimes there's someone very, very powerful, but you're not inclined to surrender to them. Right? They're very powerful and they can take care of everything, but they're maybe not a very merciful person. You trust them, just like all the people, just like trusting someone like, who am I trying to think of? Who was the one in Russia? No, during World War II? Stalin, yeah. How would you like to surrender to him? No. He murdered more people than his own countrymen than they were killed on the opposite side during World War II. So he's just a ruthless person.
When I was in Moscow, they showed me a whole lot of apartments. Wow. It was all built by the Germans that they captured. They had to surrender as slave labor and working there.
Yeah. So just because someone's powerful, that's not enough. But Karuna Sindhu, Krishna's an ocean of mercy and kindness, which means his ocean is as broad as possible and as deep as possible. So broad means every single living entity is an object of his kindness and mercy, and it goes very, very deep. We cannot even fathom, I guess that's a good word when you're talking about something being deep. You can't fathom the extent of his kindness and mercy. So when these things, as these things, and of course Prabhupada says the beauty of Krishna, it's being described here. Just seeing Krishna so beautiful that one just loses all of one's defenses and reservations. There's a perverted reflection in the material world like that. That's why they use attractive people, especially ladies, women, in advertising, right? An attractive woman, immediately your defenses go down, right? Right? The voice of a woman. Yes. Okay. Like that. But that's just how it is. That's just the nature. Our defenses, when someone's very, very beautiful. There's a book. It's called Influence. I forget the professor's name. It's a very small book. It's a professor who wrote a book on what influences people to do what they do. And in there there's different descriptions about kinds of people that their defenses immediately dropped, and they feel inclined to do whatever that person says to do. And there's many different stories in there. But if someone's very, very tall, they have an advantage. If someone's very good looking, they have an advantage. It's not in the book, but we had a devotee here, Mahashan. Mahashan was a devotee here many, 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 many years ago, Prabhupada disciple. And we ran the Bhakti program together, and he was a Sankirtan devotee. But he used to have this idea. He said, if you carry a briefcase, people think very, very important. So he used to carry a briefcase on Sankirtan. Carry a briefcase, because you think, if you have back then in those days, if you had a briefcase, you're someone important. So I used to carry a briefcase. So people have these things in their mind, you know, And it influences people. If you have a uniform on, any kind of uniform, you know, any kind of uniform. I guess that's why the Salvation Army people and those other people put little uniforms on. It gives you some type of authority. And you got a fireman, you got a policeman, military, like that. So all of these things influence people, the appearance. But Krishna is unlimitedly beautiful, so just seeing the beautiful form of Krishna, all of one's reservations and whatever reasons we have for not surrendering, for millions and millions of lifetimes, they just go away. Krishna is so beautiful. Even Krishna's ardent enemies, when they were fighting with him in different situations, Krishna would be on the battlefield and they'd come out to fight and they'd look at Krishna and they go, he is so beautiful. They would just stop for a minute, just struck by how beautiful Krishna is. Then they go to fight. And they get liberated and go back home, back to Godhead. So this verse, anukulyasa sankalpam. You know this verse? Anukulyasa sankalpam. Pratikulyasa bharjanam. These are the first two things. What does it mean to surrender to God? What does it mean to give oneself, to give up one's faults, whatever it is, and just accept the reality? And I remember Mahatma saying one time, he was giving a class on this, and he said, surrender means just acceptance. That's the real word you can use for people. Just accept the reality. That's what we're talking about. Just accept the reality. So, anukulyasa sankalpa means accepting these things. The things that are favorable for devotional service. So, and pratikulyasa varjanam. Varjanam means giving up, and giving up those things which are unfavorable. Those are the first two things. So we have to learn, and you're doing nectar of instruction, right, on Monday morning. So you have those beginning verses, the 6 things of favorable, the 6 things unfavorable. There's so many different things, and we learn that. We have to learn what's going to foster my devotional, my surrender to Krishna, and what's going to check it, like that. And then raksha shatita bishbasho. What does that mean? Yes, this protection of the Lord. Krishna will protect me, and also He is protecting. He'll protect me. Don't have to worry. And this Vishvasha, firm determination, Krishna's He's going to protect me. And this Goptite Varanam Tata, that He is my maintainer. He's taking care of everything. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? Yoga Kshema Bahamyaham. I preserve what you have and carry what you lack. Krishna's taking care of all of that. I don't have time to tell that story about the scratching out that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, but this is the point. Krishna is taking care of everyone. Like that. Don't worry, everything is coming by the grace of Krishna. Atmanakshepa, giving oneself, and karpanye means humility. So these are the different in this shadvidha, 6 sharanagati. These are the 6 limbs of surrender, and devotees study these things and try to follow this. This is what it means. It's not a imagination, or it's left up to imagination or something just sentimental. It's very, very scientific. These are the limbs of and we see that someone who is fully surrendered to the Lord, they have these in full, right? Everything they do is favorable. They're never doing anything unfavorable for devotional service. They have complete conviction that Krishna will protect them. I'll tell you a story, a real quick story. I just heard Harisari Prabhu was telling this story about the devotees in Australia. They were going on Harinam because that's all there was in those days. Back to Godhead and Harinam all day long. And it got to the point where the police were chasing them, and they would be chanting altogether, because the temple grew from 5 to 25 to 50, 60 people within 1 year. So can you imagine, they were downtown chanting in one place all day long. So all these people started complaining. They couldn't get any work done in their offices and so on. Bam, bam, you can imagine there's a Harinam party singing all day long. Just like if someone had a boombox right up front of the temple here, playing what they play now in their boomboxes, we'd get kind of upset. We can't have arati. So they complained. The police would chase them. The police would show up. The paddy wagon, he's called it that. They'd show up, and then they'd just all run. They'd scatter like whoosh, and run in different directions. He said he remembers once running into the department store, and they saw they were hiding in the ladies' dresses room, in the dresses. And he said 2 devotees always got caught. The devotee who had the guitar and the devotee who had the madanga, because you can't run that fast if you madanga or have a guitar like that. So just going on and on and on. And then finally the city itself wanted to have a court case and get the devotees out of there completely. And there's a whole story. But what it is, they wrote, Charu Prabhu, who was the temple president, wrote Prabhupada a letter. because he was thinking, they're going to throw us all in jail. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So they asked Srila Prabhupada if they should hire a lawyer to defend them in the court, because it was going to come up in the court. There's going to be a whole court case against them to get them off the streets. And Prabhupada said, told Shri, he said, no, there's no reason to hire an attorney. He said, devotees are happy to chant anywhere, inside the temple, outside the temple, even in jail. He said, just keep chanting. Devotee just keeps chanting. That was Prabhupada's response. Just chant. Keep chanting. Devotee always just chants. And so that's what they did. That's what they did. They just kept chanting and chanting and chanting. It says Prabhupada was just fearless about it. So many different stories he told. Fearless, just keep chanting. Chanting the holy names, take shelter of Krishna. And what happened is it did come to a court case. They didn't hire an attorney. There were no devotees there. And he said that what happened was the municipality would come out to the Harinam party, because they couldn't sue ISKCON, because ISKCON was an illegal identity in Australia at the time. So they could only sue devotees, individuals. So they come out and say, what's your name? And they go, oh, Prasadam Das. Or what's your name? Jalebi Das. And they take a picture, because they wanted to have individuals in their names. So they'd always made up all these names. What's your name? Samosa Das. You know, so they had all these pictures. This is Samosa Das, this is Jalebi Devi Dasi, you know. So anyways, they brought it up in court and went before the judge. There were no devotees. They were all on a Harinam that day. But he told the story. Someone told him who was at the court what happened. And the judge said, well, are any of these people still here? We don't even know if they're still in Sydney, because actually he said that the few devotees they took pictures of, they sent them to Melbourne for the day. You know, but still their names are like Samosa Das and Jalebi Das and like that. And the judge says, we don't even know they're here, this and that and this and that. And they just threw the whole thing out. And actually the judge said, I think they add some color to the city. That's what the judge's final statement was. And then it turned against the municipality. Or maybe, yeah. But it said it turned around to the benefit of the devotees, because it came out in the news that the city spent $10,000 trying to prosecute the devotees, and the whole thing was thrown out. Wasted $10,000 of taxpayer money, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Right. So Rakshashatiti Bishvasho Prabhupada had implicit faith that Krishna will just protect you. Just keep chanting. Just keep chanting, just keep chanting. Because he was saying it would cost $1,000 for an attorney. They were months behind in their rent, and they were lucky to bring in maybe $50, $60 a day. Complete, you know, for the whole, you know, he said you make $2, $3 a day per devotee on our Sankirtan. BTG was 20 cents, that's what they're living on. So, Gopta Devanam Tata, Krishna's maintaining me, he's taking care of everything. Krishna's and Prabhupada had complete faith in that. Devotees have complete Krishna's, take care of everything. Atmanikshepa, everything I have. Manasadeha Geha, everything I give to Krishna. And then Karpanya, of course the devotee is very, very, very humble. Very, very, very humble. And then of course we have the Mayavadis, they're imagining a form of the Lord, but that's it. They're imagining a form of the Lord. They think it's imagination, therefore called Mayavadis. But the devotees, the form of the Lord is coming down in parampara. Narada Muni, he's seeing Krishna personally. So you can, this is exactly. And Prabhupada says the pictures on the wall, that's why he called them windows into the spiritual world. It's parampara. And sometimes the artist would do something a little odd and Prabhupada would fix it. Right? There's a story that... oh boy, I'm getting holes in my memory today. And he's one of the artists. The name will come to me. He's here living in Alachua now. Pushkar. Pushkar tells a story. He had painted this picture of Krishna up on a limb of a tree or something, and brought the sketch to Prabhupada. And I said, "Where is this in my books?" And he said, "Well, I just thought that, Krishna would be in a limb of the tree with his kind, but Prabhupada said, it's not in my books." He said, "Don't speculate." So the point is, he, is very, very careful. We can't speculate. And this is coming in parampara. These are windows to the spiritual world. Like that. So we're already at 8:29. I'm supposed to stop in 1 minute. So we have a minute for questions, right? Or are there any questions or comments?
Haribol.
Well, it's interesting because the last thing you mentioned is that the impersonalists, they'll imagine a form, or say, well, you can imagine a form of God and worship that if you need it, right? And so what they're doing there is they're echoing what's actually going on, where people who don't know anything about transcendence, they imagine that this is us. And they'll worship all kinds of things that really aren't worshipable. It's just like the worship is ultimately futile because they're not worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they drag that same fallacy of worshiping that which is not worshipable into their philosophy that will create something to worship. All you emotional bhaktas, you need something. That's why they say that our Krishna is imaginary and that we're just fools. So really, they're staying with the paradigm of Maya by dragging by positing their wrong idea that transcendence is all imaginary. The form is all imaginary, and you can worship it if you want. So really, the reality is to get a source that's going to tell you the truth. That's what Prabhupada's talking about. Narada really can do it. He's seen the truth. He can go there and see. So he's telling us. So we should take it as the truth and worship. And then that's actual worship. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and Prabhupada uses all the time, is that you're already surrendered. There's that verse, Kama Dinam Katina Katita, that how many millions of births have I obeyed the demands of my lust, anger, and greed? I'm surrendered, maybe involuntarily, but I'm forcibly. But now I'm throwing out, I'm rejecting these demands, and I'm approaching you, Krishna, and now you, please engage me in your service. In other words, I want to surrender to you. It's just a question of what you're going to surrender to. And the voluntary nature is what makes the bhakti, out of love. It's not slavery, it's out of bhakti. That's my little comment. Hare Krishna.
Zach, not too close. Not too close. Go ahead. Anyone else? We should end here. You have a question, Bhakti Zach. Here's a question.
What about if, like for example, in some of the pictures of Mother Yashoda, she's depicted as golden skinned. But in the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the 10th canon, it says she has blackish skin, just like Krishna. So how do we understand if Prabhupada was like okay with that? Was it that Mother Yashoda can have golden skin and blackish skin? Or how do we understand it?
You have to ask Dravinda that question. He works with the BBT.
I'm not the department.
I don't know these details sometimes. Prabhupada looked at it, obviously. Yeah, it's all of
Yeah. That we know for a fact. Anything else?
You mentioned about speculation, and I was just curious about, does this include also introducing things that don't necessarily belong? Practice, as far as our brahmacharya or deity worship or any of these things. I mean, what is I've just noticed that a lot of times there's a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily say speculation, but there's introduction of things that don't necessarily belong, and they're how do you say it? They're put off as if they're the norm, as if they're acceptable. And I was just wondering, where does the line draw there?
Well, with anything, one has to check with Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu to see if what they're doing is correct. So you're always in the safety zone if what you're doing is in line with Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. So if you have any questions, you ask for clarification from Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Then you'll be okay. And if the whatever is being presented or added cannot be backed up by Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, then you got a case. You do have a case. That it's not appropriate. How's that for an answer? Is that parampara? Parampara. Okay, so we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.